Hello, I'm the master. I've got a mask and I'm an app. I was also a social worker for many, many years. While I was a social worker by day, between 1983 and 1997, I also worked one or two shifts a week on the out-of-hours standby duty team. This team, consisting mainly of daytime social workers, dealt exclusively with emergencies and crises that arose outside normal working hours. We covered nights, weekends and bank holidays. Out of hours, two social workers covered the entire county. It was a large geographical area of over 2,000 square miles, and it could entail a journey of 50 or more miles to reach the far ends. In the early years, the only means of contacting us was via a pager. If your pager went off, you had to contact a deputising service, which then told you what the problem was. For several years, the only way of contacting the deputising service, if you were out on a call, was using a public phone box. You got to know the locations of all the phone boxes in the county and always had to make sure that you had a pocket full of change. We dealt with everything. This covered all the service user groups: children and families, young offenders, older people and people with physical disabilities, as well as people with mental health problems and learning disability. We dealt with anything from child protection referrals to assessments under the Mental Health Act and obtaining night sitters or emergency residential care for elderly people. For some reason, teenage girls often seem to present the most intractable problems. I'll tell you about Angela. One evening, I received a call from a woman. She was reporting that her daughter had brought Angela, a 14-year-old friend, home with her. Angela was saying that she hated living at home and that she would not go home tonight. The friend's mother seemed a reasonable woman. After a discussion, it was agreed that Angela would stay the night with them and I would then report the matter to the local area social services office in the morning. This seemed to me to be a good temporary solution to the problem. I rang Angela's parents and told them what had happened and what was planned. They didn't like this. She's our daughter and she belongs to us. We're not giving permission for her to stay with her friend, the father insisted. I suggested that if he felt that way, he could go to the friend's house, which was several miles away, and collect her. However, he had no transport and wouldn't do anything about it. I talked to the friend's mother, who did not think she should go home and was not prepared to take Angela home herself. I had a dilemma. There was no legal authority for Angela to stay with her friend overnight. Her parents were insisting she went home. They weren't giving permission. It was not exactly a matter for the police either. I felt that the only thing to be done was for me to collect her and take her home, despite the fact that I would have a drive of over 40 miles to get to the friend's house. When I got there, Angela was understandably not happy about this arrangement. However, I eventually persuaded her to get into my car, telling her that she should discuss this with a social worker in her locality the next day if she was unhappy about being at home. She was unable to give me any evidence that she was being abused in any way at home, which would have given me grounds to obtain an emergency protection order. We drove back to the estate in the town where she lived. The estate was a warren. It was not easy to find her address. I asked her to give me directions, but she refused to cooperate. Without her help, and in spite of Angela huffing and tossing her hair back in the passenger seat, I eventually found her road. Her house was the last in a line of terrace houses overlooking a grassed area. It was not therefore possible to park directly outside her house. I got out of the car and opened the passenger door. "Here we are, Angela," I said. She didn't move. "I've got to take you home," I said, my heart already sinking. "I've already told you, I'm not going home." "You have to, I'm afraid." "No, I don't. What are you going to do about it?" she asked defiantly. What was I going to do about it? I couldn't physically manhandle her out of the car, and certainly couldn't restrain her and drag her kicking and screaming past the other houses until I got to her house. As this was in the days before mobile phones, I couldn't ring her parents to say I was nearby and get them to come to the car. Stalemate. It was clear I could not persuade her to get out of the car voluntarily. I also knew that if I left the car to go to her house, she would take the opportunity to run away. In the end, knowing what would happen, but being powerless to prevent it, I decided I would have to go to her parents' house. As I left the car, I heard the passenger door open and close. When I turned round, Angela had already disappeared into the night. I informed her parents and notified the police. I found a phone box and let Angela's friend's mother know what had happened. I suggested that if Angela happened to turn up at her house again that night, that she leave it till the morning before letting anyone know. Well, thank you for listening.